A new update in the lawsuits regarding the FTC's non-compete ban in the US. If you remember, on Tuesday, April 23rd, the FTC issued its rule to ban non-competes in the US. That's not scheduled to actually take effect until September 4th. But in the meantime, literally right after the rule came out, there were 3 different lawsuits filed, all in federal court, 2 in Texas and 1 in Pennsylvania. Well, the new update is that today, one of the lawsuits in Texas, the judge there said, we're going to hold on to this lawsuit. It's halted, pause, basically done with. We are going to have the other lawsuit in Texas actually hear the case. So what does this mean? Well, the challenges are all very similar to this rule. Basically, the plaintiffs, which are the people bringing these lawsuits, these challenges, they're all different, either business groups or businesses. In Texas, the 2 suits filed, the first filed, and this is relevant, is Ryan LLC, which is a tax advisory firm. The second suit filed, shortly after, was by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, 3 other business groups. Notably, Ryan LLC is actually a member of at least one of those business groups. But so with those 2 in Texas and the 1 in Pennsylvania, that kind of lends to a natural question that people might have, which is, wait, if all these lawsuits are basically the same, what happens? There might be all sorts of different rulings. Well, that's why one court in Texas is hey, we're not going to have 2 potentially different rulings on this. Why this matters is that the suit that is now on pause was the suit by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, I did a whole 10-minute video on it the other day, including the judge. And so the Chamber of Commerce and those agencies, what do they do now? Well, their judge has said, hey, we're going to halt this, but if you want, I'm sure you can go ahead and join that suit with Ryan LLC. Basically, you can be part of the other Texas lawsuit. And it doesn't necessarily mean that much who brings the lawsuit. Basically, they're just bringing it, looking for a nationwide ban on the non-compete. But the judge in the case that was on pause is the one that I talked about, who's a very conservative judge. He was appointed by President Trump. And he now, even not being a federal judge for that long, already has kind of a track record of striking down federal agency rules. So I've said, not knowing anybody personally involved in the case, have to imagine that the business groups were very happy that he was the judge hearing the case. So now he's not. So I've done videos on the other case, this Ryan LLC. So again, Ryan is a tax advisory firm. So basically they're saying as a business, hey, this is something that we need to do. A lot of people will disagree with that statement, that that's a need. That might be a want, as I say to my children. But the judge over that, I did a video on this, is Judge Ada Brown, also appointed by President Trump. So you can never guarantee by appointments what someone's going to do, but those plaintiffs are probably still fairly happy with that, expecting that if she was appointed by President Trump, reading the tea leaves and hoping that she'll be in favor of those business groups. Because what they're asking is for this judge to strike down or temporarily halt the ban on non-competes. Now, there are differences between those 2 Texas lawsuits, because the one that was the Chamber of Commerce that's on hold, that judge had issued this whole scheduling order. It was this is how it's going to go. And he had said, we're not just going to talk about a temporary halt. You guys, do all your legal research and papers to tell me if this should ultimately be illegal. We're going to decide this once and for all. And so all of that was going to be done with all of that filing due kind of at the end of June. So with that, there was going to be a lot of legal work, but we would have known, still probably pretty close to that September 4th date, whether not just there was a temporary halt, but whether this rule was declared illegal. And then they would have appealed up to other courts. That's why I explained that it's still kind of a long process, and why I don't necessarily know that this ban on non-competes will happen on September 4th. But the Ryan court is a little bit different in that there, the judge has not issued a broad scheduling order. In it, the plaintiff, which is Ryan, so this tax firm, they had said, hey, let's make it quick how we decide the scheduling on this. So at least shorten the dates in which we have to do all the briefing. So they had basically asked the court, we want a really short time period for the scheduling. And the court had said, okay, well, I don't know about that yet, but FTC, you need to respond quickly by this coming Tuesday, May 7th. You have to just tell me by May 7th whether you agree with this shortened, even having a shortened schedule to ask for a shortened schedule. It sounds kind of complicated. Well, kind of funny. The court issued that, but the FTC had already responded yesterday. And then Ryan went ahead and responded. So these are lawyers working really quickly. So overall, unlike the U.S. Chamber of Commerce suit, which is on hold, there's not a scheduling order So in this, you can't necessarily say when you'll have a court decision, but Ryan LLC has asked the court for a decision by July 3rd. And this is where the FTC hasn't said what date they'd like. They're basically like, we're not going to tell you, Judge. We just disagree with when like some of the initial documents should be filed. And in that one, the judge, again, hasn't said whether it will just be a decision on like a temporary halt or an overall decision. And I'm not going to get too much into the legalese. So now what you have is this Texas court right now. This is the one that's going to be deciding it, at least in Texas, that the plaintiffs are looking for a decision on the temporary halt by July 3rd. The judge will have to say whether they agree or disagree. But there's a third suit. Where's that? That's up in Pennsylvania. And so that's by ATS, Tree Services, which is like a tree company. And so there, some of the question is like, okay, well, in Texas, if this court was like, we're not going to hear this right now, what's this Pennsylvania judge going to say? Are they going to hear this? And so one of the reasons that the Texas court had said is like, hey, we're within like the Fifth Circuit, which is basically our region. So like, I'm not going to step on this other judge's toes effectively. So I imagine that there'll be some arguments there of, hey, we should just have one court, at least in Texas, decide this. So it's not clear what's everything in that Pennsylvania suit, even though it was filed last week as well, it isn't as far along as the other ones. So what to know is there will be one suit in Texas. There will be no suit by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce by itself. And so Judge Barker, who I made a 10-minute video around, is no longer the judge, but you can focus on the Ryan LLC. So I'll update as soon as I know real things, and I'll try to break it down, but hopefully that's helpful information.